service this morning. As we know, finance ministers and governors of central banks from around the globe are in Washington this week for the International Monetary Fund and World Bank meeting. Well, yesterday, the World Bank Group President Jim Yong Kim renewed calls to end extreme poverty. Our correspondent Chimize Obiwago actually sent in this report.
Indeed a wet day in Washington, D.C., but that did not deter the delegates for this year's World Bank IMF meeting from attending. The hall where the preliminary press briefings to herald the meetings were held was filled to the brim by both the delegates and the media people from different parts of the country. The World Bank president makes his address on the expectations from the meetings, and poverty reduction by 9% by 2020 happens to be the bank's top priority.
The quest to end poverty is much bigger than us. The growing global movement has taken hold as leaders of governments, international organizations, and civil society unite around this critical objective. Our strategy is bold because the challenge is immense. Over 1 billion people live in extreme poverty, earning $1.25 a day or less.
While the World Bank focuses on poverty reduction, the IMF is more interested in ensuring that its member countries work together closely to manage the transitions underway in the global economy.
There is a transition underway concerning the financial market, and you might even argue that monetary policies adopted by many central banks are also going through transitions. What does it mean in terms of policy? It means that clearly those transitions have to be addressed and managed very carefully, and they have to be addressed in cooperation.
That done, Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, together with other members of the Commonwealth countries, acquainted the media present.
We noted that sustainable development financing needs are enormous, and there's a need for new and additional resources if the financing needs of our countries, of the developing countries, are to be met. Within this, we wanted to stress, or we stressed, that ODA remains vital, and we reiterated our call to the international community to meet its existing ODA commitments in a time-bound manner.
What has been happening so far are the preliminary talks, press briefings, seminars that precede the annual World Bank IMF meeting. The meeting proper begins on Friday, 11th of October. From the World Bank Center here in Washington, the venue of the 2013 World Bank IMF meeting. I am Chimize Obiwago, reporting for Channels Television.
We're hoping that we can actually connect with Chimize in the course of the program. But that's the focus, and that's what the conversation is going to be like on today's edition of the program. And I'm being joined by the head of research, BGL PLC, Femi Ademola, and we're looking at the World Bank IMF meeting, global growth and challenges. Thank you so much, Femi, for joining us this morning. Well, this meeting, it's something that is annual. It comes up rather frequently. What should our expectations be for this particular one?
One thing we need to understand about this meeting is the guys that are meeting and talking in this place, they are, well, a little bit of economic advisors and some a little bit of policymakers. Most of the things that we see in this place, they are advisory. It's, yeah, I mean, well, again, we need to separate what World Bank stands for and what IMF stands for. World Bank is more of development, and IMF is more of the economist. They are like the Central Bank of Nigeria, where the World Bank is like the fiscal authority. First Bank looks around, is just, okay, this is our development principles, these are the policies that we want to do in terms of development. And IMF will tell us about what implications all these things will mean. Right. So at the end of the day, what we're going to see here will be the outlook, the plan for the World Bank. And again, all the subscribers to World Bank, all the countries involved in World Bank too, will put what it is that their objective are, and then able to come together to what they want to do. Again, they don't have any authority on any country in what to do, especially the Western country who are not in direct need of funds from the World Bank.
We're going to be talking about that Femi much later, but let's look at how these meetings actually benefit developing countries or emerging markets like Nigeria. You know, we have the coordinating minister of the economy, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, she's there, and the CBN governor is also there. So when they all sit down together and they come up with these policies, and mind you, on the program for today, the CBN governor is going to be speaking about banking reforms and developments here in Nigeria. So yes, it is like another plus for us. But what benefits are all this particular meetings now for us here in Nigeria?
Well, again, like I said earlier, World Bank is focused on development, and those are the people that need to help developing countries, to help emerging markets in order for them to achieve some of their MDGs and some other objectives that they want to do.
Right.
You present your case to them, you tell them what it is that's happening in your country, and help them to formulate policy that's going to focus on that. What World Bank is looking to do is to help developing market and emerging market to make sure that they, like the World Bank president said, to eradicate extreme poverty. Now they want to bring it down to 9% by 2020 and then to 0 by 2030. That's extreme poverty anyway. It doesn't mean that poverty will not exist, but at least the extremeness of poverty will be reduced. Now, the important thing about this thing is that we need to understand again that IMF, from time to time, they give us advice on what they think they want us to do. But in so many instances, we don't accept it. Quite a number of times they've written a report about what they think we should do, how they expect them to float our exchange rate, why they expect us to stop AMCOM purchase of assets, or how they want CBN to proceed.
Yes, because a lot of people have debated that the policies that IMF actually comes out with are too strict and stifling, so to speak. And so really it doesn't augur so well for Nigeria, which is the reason why a lot of people are kicking against it, I guess.
I wouldn't say that in totality. The fact remains that in so many instances, what they said is not absolute rubbish. It's not that it is too stringent every time. It is just about timeliness. Policies, economic models, they are best suited for a particular period in time. There is no particular model that is the best. So if IMF come and say, okay, this one that you are doing at this moment, we don't see longevity in it. We don't believe that it is appropriate in the long term. This is what you should do. It is advisory, like I said. And if we say no to it, no problem, you can say no to it. But remember that if you run back to them to help us for funding, you want the World Bank for us to work for funding, you need to listen to whatever the policy that is that they are bringing up. Some of their policy, again, it makes sense. For example, I have had corresponding and the discussion with HAMCOM before that we need to stop buying assets from the bank, because if care is not taken, it's going to bring moral hazard into it. Now, AMCON's excuse was that they don't believe they're going to get moral hazard because of the haircut that the banks have to take. So it's very painful to them, so they don't just rush to it. But hey, wait a minute, it's definitely going to happen. Few months down the line, IMF said the same thing. I said, hey, AMCON, I think it is the right time for you to stop buying assets from these banks. Because instead for banks to sit down and say, let me do remedial for most of these things, let's look how we can work out the loan. They have a willing buyer in AMCON. Yes, it has a discount. But if you want to work it out with a debtor and an obligor that doesn't have money to pay again, the same is going to happen. So instead of dealing with 150 obligors or 1,500 obligors, you deal with just one person to put all the stock to. I think the banks will need to do it. So sometimes what they said is not that it is outright throw away.
Because you see, a lot of times when everybody's looking at it, they're looking at it in the short to medium term. They're not looking at it in the long term.
Exactly, that's the point. There's a time they were advising us that the semi-fixed exchange rate that we are using, this is the managed float, defending our naira with the reserve, that is not sustainable, and we should consider floating it. It makes sense, but maybe not in the short term. Now, what they are telling you is that there is no country in the world that have won a war against currency. You would always have people to back. Now, see what we're facing now. Exchange rate is, the volatility is there because and our foreign reserve has gone down because the CBN is backing it up as long as they can't fight against all the volatility. But we're import dependent. Now, yes, to start with, if it starts to float right now, it will be very, very painful for Nigeria. However, in the long term, it pays us. But again, what we need to do is, do we have to treat it? We just, okay, fine. We are taking it under consideration and we'll look at what needs to be done to make it happen. We need to improve local production. You need to make sure that we help infrastructure production. And if government is willing to do that, then life is good.
You know, at this meeting, we're also expecting that discussions are going to be focused on on all the things that are happening globally in Europe, in US at the moment. And you heard that report we played back on the coordinating minister of the economy.
That's right.
The IMF managing director, speaking on the negative impact this impasse is going to have if it doesn't stop anytime soon. And this is day 10. Now, looking at it very critically, what sectors of the economy or what aspects of our economy is going to take the biggest hit if this impasse doesn't stop?
Let me first clarify things. There are two things that happen in the US at this moment. In fact, it's only one that is really, really hard. That's the budget impasse. And it's just the normal budget debate that the one that happened in Nigeria. Like the National Assembly having difficulty with the president, and therefore they're not signing the budget until April or June.
But then they also have a problem with their debt ceiling.
Exactly. That hasn't come. The only thing we are afraid of is that what happened if that is breached. But based on the news you even read up earlier on, remember that dojos and other indexes have started going up. Because John Boyer has said yesterday that he's ready to take it forward to the Republican, who are the people that are causing trouble anyway in the first time, that we can give 6 weeks bridge, for the debt ceiling to be raised, and then we'll talk about our negotiation, expecting that we're going to reach something before the November 27 deadline. That's fine, but it's not still good. There's still uncertainty. What happened after 27? Yesterday, Jack Liu, the Treasury of the Treasury Secretary, went to the Capitol to defend in front of Senate. One senator was actually speaking, how can you, the Treasury Secretary, cannot tell us what's going to happen? You cannot even make investors or make financial service or anybody to say, don't worry, everything will be fine.
But his argument was that this ceiling actually was reached in May. Yeah. And so it was borrowed time that the U.S. government has been living on, the U.S. economy has been living on borrowed time. Yeah. Looking at it, that it could be that the debt ceiling could be reached by the 15th of this month, or could be by the 12th, or could be by the 17th. Yeah. But what you're saying is that get out more funds, but where is he going to be getting more funds from since there's a shutdown?
The thing about it is that the shutdown it's not the same thing as the debt ceiling. Okay. The shutdown is internal. That's something about... Okay,
but they need funds to run now.
No, they need funds to run, but like you see, the only thing that is being affected seriously right now is the non-essential services. Yes, services will run. Like in Nigeria too, if the budget is not passed, government can still run based on last year's budget to the level, and then before things start getting out. So this one, they can still stick it to a level. But the thing is, there is some reputational damage to it. Now, okay, you are blaming the developing country, you are blaming the African leaders. You guys are this, you are never agreeing with them, you are too powerful. Same thing's happening here now. The almighty US cannot resolve a budget impasse. Now, the debt ceiling is the most dangerous, because now the US dollar is the benchmark currency for the world. Everybody, every financial transaction is probably held in that US bond. Everybody believes that it's a sovereign bond. It can never, the US government will always meet its obligation. Now, if the debt ceiling is reached, and if you look at it, even in Nigeria here, what Nigeria used to do is you refinance the debt at any point in time. Yes. The debt is out there, you raise another bond to refinance and the one that want to redeem. Same
so how does this now affect that the $1 billion Euro bond that the finance minister and the budget office, did a roadshow for sometime this year, because they said that it was oversubscribed, 4 times oversubscribed, and it was mainly corely U.S. investors that actually had a heavy buy-in into that. So how does this affect?
The effect is in interest rate. That means the U.S. dollar, the U.S. government that we all think can never renege on this problem, can actually do if the debt ceiling was breached and they cannot repay their obligation. What we mean is that assessing the debt everywhere in the world will become very expensive. Interest rate will go up because everybody's it's quite a lot of countries that are benchmarking against the US. For example, when we are raising our Euro bond, it is going to be some margin above the LIBOR, not in Nigeria. So all this kind of thing is based on US dollar. Now, if US have this crisis, then the rate, the risk will be in it. The meaning is that, okay, it's not certain that even if you have a US bond as your collateral, you are sure of being repaid. And therefore, we have to build some risk into it. So if we are supposed to have charged you 2%, then it's going to be 3% or 4%, and that's the fact. So what you see is that the yield on our Euro bond will just go because investors want more yield because they can buy it, and so price will go down, then yield will expand.
So in the long run, is that good news or bad news for us?
It is not good news. Increasing yield is not the best in every situation, especially not to the investor. One thing I must clarify is this: in regard to the Eurobond that we've already raised, there's no effect to Nigeria. We already collected
the 500 million or the 1 billion?
The 500 that we already raised.
What about the 1 billion?
The 1 billion. I'm not sure if that one is raised already. If it is already done, we don't have a problem because the money is already with us. Servicing it is based on the coupon. But the problem is refinancing. Going back to the market, it's going to be at a higher cost. Now, because the investor already would be like, hey, it's not really risky, more risk, so we're going to build more into it. So if Nigeria want to go now to raise more, then it's going to be, if they have not raised the 1 billion, they just want to raise it, then the yield will be higher. When we are looking at 7%, now people expect more yield to it. So even if your coupon is 5%, you can say, you know what, then the price has to go down for us to be able to have a yield of 7 to 8%, because that's what we feel it right now. The effect is that replacement cost goes up. That's the most important thing.
Okay. The family, let's take a quick break and catch our breath. And when we come back, we're still looking at the World Bank IMF meeting and the global growth and challenges. And I'm talking with the head of research of BGL PLC, Femi Ademola. We'll be back in just a moment.